ॐ दक्षिणस्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशववामन कृष्ण पाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरु सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवत्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुराः सुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Lord Krishna starts the 13th chapter directly, the Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoga chapter, directly by going to the ultimate truth that Vedanta reveals in the form of saying that this entire creation is nothing but a very loose mixture of matter and consciousness. The matter principle, Lord Krishna said in the first verse as Kshetram. And what did the Kshetram include? The Kshetram included the entire Jagat, including this body, mind, sense complex. And he said, that which is aware of this Kshetram, or that which is the knower of the matter principle, is called as the Kshetrajna. And therefore, straight away, Lord started telling that, look, there is one principle called as the matter principle, which is constantly changing. It is Vikari. Because it is Vikari, it is Anitya. That means it is not available all the time, keeps changing, and one day it will disappear. Third thing is, being Vikari and being Anityam, this Kshetram is absolutely Mithya. Mithya means what? It is a reality which is an experiential reality. Mithya doesn't mean that the Jagat is not there. Mithya doesn't mean that the matter principle is not there. What it means is that the matter principle or the entire kshetra which is represented by the matter principle is nothing but an experiential reality. It is not the absolute reality. Then what is the absolute reality? The kshetrajna or the knower of this kshetra, the knower consciousness is what is called as the kshetrajna. And kshetrajna is what? It is one consciousness in all the kshetras. Therefore, it is ekam. Ekam advitiyam. Being ekam, it is not many. It is one without a second. And it is nirvikari. It does not undergo any kind of a change. So the kshetrajna or consciousness principle is nirvikari. Being a nirvikari, it is nityam. That which is nityam, that which is nirvikari is something which is called as the Satyam, that which exists in all three periods of time. And therefore, the nature of the Kshetrajna, which is also called here in this chapter as Purusha, Kshetrajna and Purusha mean the same. It is nothing but this consciousness principle, which is not in any way a part of the Kshetram. The consciousness principle or the Kshetrajna is something which is absolutely, though it is in and through the matter principle, it is not in any way connected with the matter principle. It is not a part or a product or property of the matter principle, which is going to be talked about later in the later verses. And also Bhagwan said that the knowledge of this, that is, what is the difference or the knowledge of the Kshetram, the knowledge of Kshetrajna, and understanding the difference between the two is the ultimate knowledge that is taught by the Upanishads. And he brought in the Mahavakyam straight away in the second verse, saying that the matter may be many, there may be many names and forms, but that knower of matter or Kshetrajna, I am only one principle, one consciousness backing all the names and forms, in and through all the matter principle, in entire Kshetram, I am that one Ekam Advitiyam consciousness principle, which Bhagwan called earlier in the 7th chapter as Paraprakriti. And then this is the Mahavakyam. Mahavakyam means what? That sentence, that Vakya of the Upanishads, which talks about Abheda between the Jiva and Ishvara. Said that is, I am one consciousness and I am that consciousness in all the kshetras. And I am the truth, I am the absolute reality. And all that you see or experience as the matter principle is only a superficial, ephemeral, experiential reality which does not have really any stuff of its own. And then in the third verse, Lord said that he's going to talk or discuss very briefly about the nature of Kshetram and the nature or Swarupam of Kshetrajna. And by nature of Kshetram, he said, that which it manifests in the Kshetram, there is nothing which is permanent, which keeps changing. Therefore, in the Kshetram, what is there is only a chain of cause effect, cause effect, cause effect, cause effect. Nothing remains a cause forever. Nothing remains an effect forever. And the entire Kshetra or the matter principle is nothing but a chain of cause and effect. And what is Kshetrajna? That which is Karya, Karana, Vilakshana. Karana means the cause. Karya means the effect. Like I may be the effect of my parents, but I'm the cause of my child. Now my child becomes the cause of the next generation. That way, the cause becomes the effect becomes the cause for the chain continues. And then what is this Kshetrajna? This Kshetrajna is other than the cause effect principle, which is nothing but the matter principle. And in the fourth verse, Bhagwan praised this knowledge and said that the purport or the central teaching of all the Upanishads is this knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. And this has been talked about by various rishis when they revealed what was revealed to them by Parameshwara or by Brahman at the time of the creation. And the rishis passed this knowledge of Kshetra Kshetrajna to their shishas, and it went as a parampara. And Chando bihi vividaihi prithak. Very clearly, he said in the second line in the fourth verse that all Vedanta explains the Kshetra and Kshetrajna separately as two different orders of reality and gives very clearly the differences between the Kshetram, the matter principle, and the Kshetrajna, the consciousness principle. And also Brahma Sutra Padaishchaiva Hetumadbihi Vinishchitaihi. He said that this particular aspect of the knowledge of Kshetra Kshetrajna has been very logically explained by Bhagavan Vyasa in the work called as the Brahma Sutras. Hetu Madbihi means very logically all the Upanishad Vakyas, which are called as Brahma Suchaka Vakyani. All the Upanishadic Vakyas are called as Brahma Suchaka Vakyani because they try to describe and indicate what is the Swarupam of this Brahman, what is the Swarupam of this Kshetrajna. So Kshetrajna, Paraprakriti, Atma, Brahman, Purusha, all these are nothing but the Paryaya Padas for the same consciousness principle. Now, since Bhagavan Krishna told in the third verse that very briefly he is going to describe what this matter principle is. So, the Vikari, what is the Karanam that becomes Karyam and continues as a chain of cause effect. What is the cause? What is the effect in the Apara Prakriti or in Kshetram? That is going to be explained in the next two verses. That is the 5th verse and the 6th verse. He said in the 3rd verse, what did he say? Kshetram yaccha yadrikcha. What is that Kshetram? What is its nature? Yad vikari yatascha yat. So what is the cause? What is the effect in this matter principle? I'm going to talk to you about that. And the 5th verse and the 6th verse are the two verses where the vikara of the matter principle, from the time it comes into existence as a vyavaharika satyam, as an experiential reality, is being talked about. Now, in our Shastra, this creation or how the matter principle came into effect is talked about by talking about various principles or components of matter. And different darshanas talk about different components which go into making this matter principle. Why is there a difference? Anyway, this kshetram is mithya. So it does not matter whether 7 principles go into defining the kshetram, 16 principles go into defining the kshetram, or 24 principles go into defining kshetram. It does not matter. Ultimately, what is it that makes this matter principle in the current present state, which we are able to see, which is available for our perception? From where did it start, and to what extent, what kind of changes, and the chain of vikara is going on, is going to be told in the 5th verse and 6th verse. In the 5th verse, Bhagwan takes this concept from Sankhya philosophy. And in Sankhya philosophy, there are 24 tattvas or principles or components which cause this entire material universe or the matter principle. And here Bhagwan explains those 24 principles as to where it starts from, and then what are the different stages in which that very, very subtlest matter principle called Prakriti, how from the subtlest unavailable avyakta potential form, how it manifests into this gross universe. So we'll read the 5th verse. He says, Mahabhutanyahangaraha buddhiravyaktameva cha indriyani dashaikancha panchachendriya gocharaha. Here we'll have to take some of these words in a little different order, because Bhagavan has not talked about in exactly the order in which it starts. So here what he says is, in principle, what he says is, whatever is the total matter principle which is at present before the creation is in a potential form, which is in an avyakta form, is called as Prakriti. And that Prakriti also is given a name called Avyaktam. And from Prakriti, a cosmic universe develops, a very, very subtle form of cosmic universe, which is called as Mahat principle in Sankhya philosophy. And it is said that this Mahat principle represents the total buddhi or the total jnanam also. You don't have to worry about it. Just remember that first principle is called as the Avyaktam or Prakriti, And the Prakriti or Avyaktam undergoes a change to a little bit more grosser form called as Mahat, or the total cosmic universe, because some more potential universe is still there. Whatever matter is supposed to appear as the total universe or cosmic universe is called as Mahat. So the first stage of conversion is from Prakriti to Mahat. Then Mahat undergoes a change in the second stage called as the Ahankara. Here Ahankara does not mean the ego. The Ahankara here means the cosmic ego or the doership. There something is to be done to convert the cause into effect. That total doership or total ego is called as Ahankara. So Prakriti, Mahat, Ahankara. These are all the Mahat and Ahankara are still very, very subtle principles. Whereas Prakriti is totally Avyakta, this is slightly more grossified to form what is called as the subtle universe. From this Ahankara, in the third stage, Sankhya philosophy says that 15 tattvas come out. Okay, what are those 15 tattvas? He says the cosmic mind comes, called as Manaha. Then there are 10 Indriyas, that is the 5 Jnanendriyas and the 5 Karmendriyas. Okay, and then 5 subtle elements come out. Pancha Mahabhutani. Don't worry too much about this. Just understand this. The Prakriti Vikara goes like this. Prakriti to Mahat, which is the cosmic universe. Mahat to Ahankara, which is the cosmic ego. From Ahankara, we have got, what we have got here, we have got the cosmic mind Manaha, and then we have got 5 Panchabhutas, Akasha, Vayuhu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi, and in the subtle form, Pancha Mahabhutas, which are the subtle form, which are called as the Tanmatras. If you remember Tattvabodha, you'll find this. In Tattvabodha also the same order is explained. So you can go to Tattvabodha in our ebooks and see. So here there are 10 Indriyas, Sukshma Indriyas, then 1 mind. Okay. Then we have 5 subtle elements. So there are 16 here. So 16 plus 3, 19 are formed. Then from these 5 subtle elements, a grossification happens and the 5 gross elements are formed, which are responsible for the name and form Jagat, including our body. Now, our body being the kshetra, the 5 gross elements form the sthula shariram, and the 5 elements which are sukshma elements in their various combinations, they form the sense organs and also the mind. Now you may ask, what happens to the prana? Why prana is not mentioned here? Prana is not mentioned here because prana is again a combination of the 5 elements in different ways. Yes, it is a little difficult to understand. I accept it. But then remember that this whole universe, which is Kshetram, is made up of 24 components, and Lord Krishna takes it from the Sankhya principle. In the 7th chapter, what did he say? Bhinna Prakriti Ashtadha, he said. In 8 different ways, this Prakriti divides itself, he said. So there he said 8. Here, he's using the Sankhya principle because he wants to define this Kshetra, more widely than he described in the 7th chapter. So then here we have to rearrange the words in this verse, and here first we have to take in the second line Avyaktam. Okay, second line Buddhir Avyaktam evacha. The Avyaktam is the total matter principle which is called as Prakriti. In Sankhya it is also called as Pradhanam, but let us take Prakriti only, which is totally the Avyaktam, which is the subtlest of the total matter. And then next word we have to take is Buddhihi. Buddhihi means the next stage, which is called as Mahat. Buddhi is not the regular Buddhi, our individual Buddhi. It is the total Buddhi or the total cosmic universe, which is nothing but knowledge principle, because it has to go further in a chain fashion, and therefore it is total buddhi, which is called as Mahat principle. From there, you go to the first line now. He says, Ahankaraha. Ahankara is what? Ahankara here is again, the cosmic doership or the cosmic doer or cosmic ego, total ego, which is responsible for further chain in the chain reaction, Ahankara. Then what does he say? Mahabhutani, Pancha Mahabhutani, 5 subtle elements are formed. Then what? Indriyani Dashaikancha, 10 indriyas and 1 mind. Ekamcha means the mind, cosmic mind, as well as the, what is it called as the 10 subtle indriyas, total indriyas. What we can also call this whole thing as Hiranyagarbha. You know, we have seen that. From the Avyaktam, there is the formation of Hiranyagarbha, and Hiranyagarbha is what? Total Sukshma Shariram, total Buddhi, total mind, total Indriyas. So we can say that this whole thing, the subtle universe, can be all these stages can be taken as Hiranyagarbha. Different combinations leading to Hiranyagarbha. Then Pancha Chendriya Gocharaha. That means 5 grossified elements which really form the gross universe. So totally 24 elements or 24 tattvas form or contribute in forming this entire kshetram, which is nothing but the cause effect. And in the individual body, the pancha gross elements, okay, pancha sthula bhutas form this physical body. Pancha sukshma bhutas in their various combinations are responsible for the individual indriyas, individual mind and buddhi. That way. And of course, prana is also included in that. Here, Bhagwan does not include the prana. And if you go to Tattvabodha, the entire Sukshma Shariram is divided into Pancha Jnanendriyas, Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Prana, and also 4 functional units of Antakaranam. The thing is, it is expressed in a little different way. Yes, it is difficult to remember, but don't worry. Just understand that from Avyaktam or from Prakriti, what happens is, in a series of cause effect, first a subtle universe is created. From the subtle universe, the gross universe and the gross body are created. And once the mind is created, individual mind is created, individual body mind is created. Now what happens? In the next verse, Bhagwan says that this combination of Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira in an individual, which is nothing but a combination of grossified 5 elements as the body and Sukshma Panchabhutas as the very Sukshma Sharira, this combination of the physical body and the Sukshma Sharira is called as Karya Karana Sanghata. What is Karya? The body. What is Karana? The mind with the sense organs is called as the Karana. So this whole body mind sense complex is called as the Karya Karana Sanghata. Now what is Krishna doing? Lord Krishna, from the total, now he has come to the individual, and now he's defining the individual kshetra, which is again a very loose combination of the Sthula Shariram and the Sukshma Shariram. The Sukshma Shariram having 17 in one way or 19 components. For this, you'll have to go back to Tattvabodha and read it. Otherwise, it may be a little difficult to understand. So once this mind is there in this body, now what is this whole, the so-called individual I am? Sthula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, Karana Shariram, we know that. The Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira combination is called as the Karya Karana Sanghata. And in this Karya Karana Sanghata, the Karanam or the mind is very, very subtle Panchabhutas. It's a subtle matter. So even the mind and the intellect are nothing but matter principles. Very, very subtle matter. And therefore, this mind and intellect have the capacity to reflect that consciousness or kshetrajna. Okay. So when you see, you remember one thing. Supposing there are certain metals, Some of them conduct heat very easily. Some of them conduct electricity very easily. Some of them do not conduct heat or electricity. Similarly, our gross body cannot reflect the consciousness or kshetrajna. The kshetrajna here, the consciousness or the knower in this body mind sense complex, that knower consciousness called as kshetrajna is reflected in the mind, because the mind is a very, very subtle medium, like a mirror. Supposing light falls on, a mirror, what happens? The mirror is able to absorb the light, sunlight, you say, and the mirror itself becomes bright, and the mirror itself is able to emit, the reflected light and show us whatever is there around. What is the meaning of this? That the mirror is a medium which can reflect the light and itself become, you know, a revealing medium. It can itself, the reflection in the reflecting medium itself can reveal something else. Similarly, what is said here is our mind is the subtlest of the matter. Forget about the Karana Shariram. Mind and intellect is considered to be a very subtle matter which is capable of reflecting this consciousness. And what is the reflection that is caused in this mind and buddhi? It is called as the Pratibimba Chaitanya or Abhasa Chaitanya or Chidabhasa. So you would have heard of this Chidabhasa, correct? What is the meaning of Chidabhasa? There is this Kshetrajna in me, but then this kshetrajna, to make the body mind sense complex sentient and make the whole karya karana sanghata function, this consciousness cannot do it by itself. This karya karana sanghata has to reflect this consciousness, borrow this consciousness, and then only the body mind sense complex becomes sentient. The body is gross. The body cannot reflect this consciousness because of its very grossness. But the mind and the buddhi, the antakaranam, being the sukshma matter, being the very, very sukshma 5 elements, the sukshma matter, and the sukshma matter means the sukshma kshetram here. It is able to reflect this consciousness, kshetrajna. So the kshetrajna automatically gets reflected in the mirror like antakaranam and forms a reflection in it. This reflection is called as the Chidabhasa. And this reflected consciousness or the reflection of the consciousness is going to be transmitted by the Sukshma Sharira to the Sthula Sharira like a relay. And what happens? The Sukshma Sharira itself becomes sentient and lends this sentience to the body also. Thus, it is not the Kshetrajna by itself which enlivens the body mind sense complex. The Kshetrajna forms a reflection. Kshetrajna has nothing to do with the reflection. Whenever there is a mirror in front of anything, the mirror will automatically reflect whatever is there. Similarly, in the mirror-like medium of the mind, automatically, without any effort, the Kshetrajna or consciousness gets reflected, and this reflection is called as Abhasa Chaitanya or Chidabhasa, which lends sentience to the other portions of the Sukshma Sharira and also to the Sukshma Sharira. Therefore, this is also called as Chetana. Chaitanyam, the Kshetrajna, gives rise to this reflection which is formed in the Antakarana called as Chetana or Chidabhasa, and this Chetana gets relayed to the rest of the body mind sense complex, making this body mind sense complex sentient. And that's what he's going to talk about. What is this Chidabhasa or Abhasa Chaitanya? Because it is very essential for us to know that if consciousness is, or Kshetrajna is the Paramarthika Satyam, and if the entire Kshetram, including my body, mind, sense complex, is the Kshetram and consciousness is Kshetrajna, then how does Kshetrajna really help this body mind sense complex to function? Because both of them are different. There should be some intermediate medium which reflects, borrows this consciousness, reflects in it itself, and then lends it to the other. So this is like a middleman. This mind or antakaranam being a very, very sensitive reflecting medium, it reflects the consciousness, that is Kshetrajna, and transmits or relays this Chaitanyam or Chetana to the body mind sense complex. That's why we feel that I am alive. Where is it coming from? It is coming from Kshetrajna, but through the medium of the mind called as Chidabhasa. Now, this Chidabhasa, the reflection, along with the reflecting medium, the reflection along with the reflecting medium makes me feel that I'm an individual. So the individual ahankara develops. Therefore, see the difference. The ahankara is, the kshetrajna is not the ahankara also. Okay, the individual doership, the individual agency, the individuality that I am this particular individual, it comes from where? It is nothing but the reflection of this kshetrajna in the mind or the buddhi, and this reflecting medium along with the reflection is what is called as the individuality or ahankara. So here, once this ahankara comes, once the mind is there, then what do? I try to divide the entire kshetram into that which I want, that which I don't want. The mind starts dividing the entire kshetra into pairs of opposites. Actually, there's no pairs of opposites. But once this mind becomes sentient because of the borrowed consciousness from kshetrajna, and once the Chidabhasa is formed, I'm sorry, this is difficult, but Krishna is talking about all these things. So I have to tell you these things. Yes, one has to really go through it again and again. Please go through the Tattva Bodha again about what is a Jiva, what is a Chidabhasa, what is, matter principle, what is Sula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira. That will really help. So here what Krishna is saying is that, the vikaras of this whole thing which was told earlier as to how this entire universe or kshetra came into existence. What are its vikaras? Its vikaras are nothing but a sentient body, mind, sense complex, along with the individuality, the doership or the agency called as ahankara. This is the vikara of the kshetra. And this vikara, this ahankara, what do I start thinking? Oh, I'm an individual. I'm different from all other individuals. I'm different from Ishvara. This reflection starts believing that it is the original, unfortunately. But Kshetrajna is unaffected by it. It is this combination of the Chidabhasa along with the Sukshma Sharira, and the Sukshma Sharira and the Sthula Sharira is what is called as a Jiva, the individual. Okay, the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, along with the Chidabhasa and Ahankara becomes this unit called as a Jiva. And from where this, the consciousness has been borrowed or derived, it is the Kshetrajna who gets reflected in the medium of the mind, in the most subtle medium of the mind, the mirror of the mind, and continues to transmit that and makes me feel that I am an individual doer, experiencer, different from everybody else. From there starts our problem. When I think that the individual ahankara comes, when the Chidabhasa or the Abhasa Chaitanya, along with the reflecting medium, considers itself to be the individual doer, the Jivatvam has come. This is where the Jiva has slipped. But there's nothing can be done. It is a natural thing that has happened. And what is the teaching of Shruti? What is the teaching of Shastra? It is only trying to tell us that, look, from the reflected Chidabhasa onwards to your entire body, you are not that. You are not the Sthula Shariram. You are not the Sukshma Shariram. You are not the Chidabhasa. You are not the Ahankara. But your real nature is nothing but that Kshetrajna, pure consciousness alone. what you're experiencing as the sentience in you, the individuality in you, is nothing but a reflection of that consciousness. And with this reflection, this mind starts dividing the entire kshetra into that which is conducive to me, that which is not conducive to me. And therefore, all the vikaras that happen in the mind which get sentient because of this reflection is what is going to be talked about in the 6th verse. He says, Ichha dvesha sukham dukkham sanghataschetana dhritihi yetat kshetram samasena savikaram udahritam. So this entire vikari kshetra, which was talked about in the 5th verse as to how it appeared in a chain-like reaction. And when it comes to the individual jiva, what happens? So we'll take the second line verse. Sanghataha. It is what? The sthula sharira, sukshma sharira combination, which is called as the sanghataha, or a group or combination of sthula sukshma sharira called as the karya karana sanghata. Karya, the sthula shariram, karanam, the sukshma shariram. And then what happens? Once the karya karana sanghata is formed, what happens? Chetana. What is this chetana? Chetana means borrowed sentience, borrowed consciousness. How is it borrowed? Whatever I told you just now, this whole explanation of reflection of kshetrajna or consciousness in the medium of the mind, a reflection of kshetrajna, which is called as the chidabhasa or abhasa chaitanya. And this abhasa chaitanya is what really transmit the sentience of the kshetrajna to the entire sthula sukshma sharira or sanghata. So sanghata, chetana. So when this chetana and sanghata have come, I have already found myself or thinking myself to be an individual. So what happens then? Ichha, dvesha, sukham, dukkham, correct? Because I cannot accept the whole matter principle as one naturally. For me, whatever is, brings happiness to me, whatever is conducive to me, I describe or I take that unit of the world as conducive to me. If it comes, I'm happy. If it goes, I'm unhappy. So a certain unit of the Jagat, I want, because I want to feel happy, sukham, I want to experience as an individual. Kshetrajna has nothing to do with it. It's ultimately the Chidabhasa, the individual ego, the mind with the Chidabhasa, which we call as Ahankara, ultimately divides this whole thing into, this is what I want. When I get this, I'm happy. When this goes away from me, I'm unhappy. I don't want this particular aspect of the Jagat. When it comes to me, I'm unhappy. When it goes away from me, I'm happy. So the mind starts dividing the whole kshetra into that which is wanted, that which is sukha-pradam, and that which is unwanted, that which is dukkha-karam. And he says this whole thing, yetat kshetram samasena, very briefly he has introduced it here. Because in the Upanishads, you will find it very, very detailed, discussed in great detail as to the Karya Karana Sanghata is discussed in detail, and our Abhasa Chaitanya is described in detail, and also Kshetrajna is described in detail. Here he told Samasena. I'm going to tell you very briefly. And all these vikaras are called as the Kshetra, starting from the Prakriti or Avyaktam to this Ahankara Chidabhasa. This whole thing is called as Kshetram. And who am I? I'm none of this Kshetra. My reality or my Swarupam is what? I'm that consciousness Kshetrajna, which is backing this whole universe and getting reflected wherever there is a reflecting medium. So Chidabhasas are many. Jivas are many. Ahankaras, individual ahankaras are many. But the Kshetrajna is one and the same. To understand this now, sadhana is necessary. Correct? Now, Bhagavan is not describing the Kshetrajna immediately. Not that he has forgotten. Only Kshetra he described. Now he goes next straight away to the next pair of things which Arjuna asked, Jnanam and Neyam. First he asked what? Purusha Prakriti, one pair. And Bhagwan did not talk about it because he's going to talk about it later. And to some extent, he has already talked about it in the previous chapters. He took up Kshetra Kshetrajna to discuss first. And he talked briefly about what is Kshetram from Avyaktam, from Prakriti up till the Chidabhasa. And Kshetrajna is not going right now because he wants to go to that Kshetrajna later when he talks about Nyayam and Purusha. Now he takes up what is called as Jnana. Now we are coming to a little simpler things now. So these last three verses were very, very difficult verses. Now, to understand this, to have an idea of this properly, Karma Yoga has made my mind, the Chitta Shuddhi has happened by Karma Yoga. Chitta Naischalyam and Chitta Vishalata has already happened because of the Upasana. And this is what we are studying now, is the Jnana Yoga, the very knowledge that the Upanishads give. For that, I have to have the maturity of the mind. And Krishna says that there are certain values which one has to learn to imbibe so that the mind becomes mature enough to understand and retain this knowledge that the Upanishads are talking about. So these values or sadgunas, which is going to be called as Daivi Sampatti in the 16th chapter. So all these gunas, sadgunas, Devi Sampatti, or the values are very necessary to make my mind mature enough to actually absorb and retain whatever is being talked about in the form of Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam. Now, being the instruments of this knowledge, these values being the sadhana or instruments to make this knowledge very, very firm in my mind, all these values are also called as jnanam. The instrument of knowledge also Krishna here calls as jnanam. He does not talk about the knowledge which he has already talked about. Kshetra, kshetragnayor jnanam, yatta jnanam, that is the knowledge. But here, whatever are the values or the sadgunas that we are going to inculcate or imbibe to make our minds mature enough to absorb this, these are nothing but instruments of knowledge. And therefore, all these values that one has to imbibe are called as together. This group is called as the Jnanam by Bhagwan here, being a very instrument of knowledge. And here Bhagwan talks about 20 values, about 20 values which have to be acquired by us. If we have to really understand this knowledge, the mind has to be matured by imbibing these values. And what are these values? These values are going to be talked about up till the 11th verse. So in the 7th verse, he starts talking about the various values or the sadgunas. Remember one thing, all these values are very closely related to each other. It's not that one value is totally different from the others. All the 20 values are such that when you bring in one value, another 3-4 of them follow that value. So they're always in groups, though Bhagwan is going to individually enumerate 20 values to be imbibed. We can take that all of them are in some way related to each other. And when we try to acquire one of the values and make our minds more mature, so many others automatically come along with that. So, gurus gave the example of noodles, when you're trying to take, with a fork, you're trying to take noodles to eat. One noodle doesn't come up. A group of noodles comes. So these values are like a group of noodles all together. So no value is independent of the other values. They're all mutually supportive of each other. So let's see what are the values that are talked about in the 7th verse here. Amanitvam adambhitvam ahimsa kshantirarjavam acharyopasanam shaucham stairyam atma vinigraha. So a set of values in the 7th verse. First thing, first value, amanitvam. Amanitvam means humility. Okay. Manitvam means what? Self-conceitedness. Manitvam. Oh, I know everything. I keep thinking. Okay. Atmani pujyatva bhavam. I have to be, I am worthy of respect. I am worthy of puja by others. I am the best. I am the greatest. I know everything. Self-conceitedness is called as manitvam. It is not possible for a person with manitvam to have a mature mind to understand this. Because the minute I start thinking that I know everything, then I have stopped learning. So manitvam means that, self-conceitedness at the level of the thought that, I am something. I have to be recognized for whatever I'm. I want to be recognized, validated by the world for what I know. But then humility is I know I may be knowing so many things, but I don't even have the feeling that, I know so much. I have so much. I should be respected for what I have. I should be respected for what you know. There's nothing like that. That kind of a feeling is not there in the mind. Humility, not an forced humility, not a humility which is simply, I don't know anything, what do I know? But inside there is always that manitvam, not that. Amanitvam means a genuine humility where there is no self-conceitedness in the mind, thinking that I am somebody, I should be treated like this. People should behave with me like this. This is the way I should be honored by people. That kind of a thought is not there at all. That manitvam is, or self-conceit is not there. That is what is called as amanitvam. In simple words, we can call it as simplicity, humility. Talk about simplicity later. Amanitvam means humility. Adhambitvam. What is the meaning of dambha? This feeling of manitvam, I want to show off physically, by my dress, by my appearance, by my wearing whatever accessories, the way I walk, the way I make myself a center of attraction in a group. My whole body language, there is that dambha. Dambha means what? Show off, trying to show off, that ostentatiousness and showing off. This is called as dambhitvam. Adambhitvam means that need to show off, to, gather attention from others is not there. The person is so humble, so simple that it doesn't matter whether anybody recognizes that person or not. But he or she does not try to show it by the body language. Manitvam is in the mind, expressed in the body form, in the form of pretentiousness, in the form of ostentatiousness. This is what is called as dambhitvam. And manitvam and dambhitvam are absolutely, these are asuri sampat, which do not allow a person to really receive this knowledge. Why? Manitva means I feel that, oh, I am so talented, I know everything. See, I have gathered all these things. A person who has manitvam can never be a bhakta, because I should understand that if there is something, if there is any talent in me, if I have acquired something, it is nothing but Ishvara's grace. It is Ishvara's vibhuti. A small minuscule of Ishvara's vibhuti is manifesting through this body mind sense complex. What have I got to feel conceited about it? There is no need to feel any kind of a self conceit. So a person who is self conceited can never be a bhakta. He can never really offer all his actions to Ishvara. And if I'm not a bhakta, then I cannot learn anything at all. Even to be an akshara upasaka, as we have seen in the previous chapter, one has to be a bhakta, and manitvam comes in the way of bhakti. And remember, I may have something, a great talent, but there are other people who have greater talent than me. This talent is not the ultimate. It can be improved upon. It is satishayam. That means what? Anybody can be having much more than me. Then I should not be in a position to feel matsaryam towards that person. When I don't have manitvam, I have no matsarya, no asuya regarding others. I appreciate that talent in anybody else. I'm able to admire a particular talent in another person also without feeling any kind of a difficulty in admiring. This is what amanitvam and adhambitvam gives me. Self-conceitedness is manitvam, and showing it off physically, pretentious, that is called as dambitvam. And once I have to have the humility and the need not to show off, adambitvam. So amanitvam, adambitvam are the first values which Lord Krishna talks about, because these are absolutely necessary for me to learn something. If I keep on saying that I know everything, then there's no question I can't learn anything. Next he says ahimsa. Very, very important value, ahimsa. Not causing any kind of an injury to others, either by thought or by words or by actions. Because what hurts me, when somebody does something and hurts me, I should not do that to others. So either by my thought or by my words or by my actions, I do not hurt anybody else, not just human beings. I don't hurt animals and plants also. Anything which has got jiva, I see to it that it is the same principle in that also. It is the same mind which is there. If I have fears, if I have, I don't want to be hurt by somebody, another jiva also doesn't want to be hurt by anybody else. Therefore, this kind of what is called as ahimsa is a value where I understand the pain of the others. When somebody, inflicts injury on me, what is that pain that I go through? And I should not inflict the same injury either verbally or by, even by thought or by any action. Because what is painful for me is painful for the other jiva also. This is what is called as ahimsa. And in, there are yamaniyamas in the Yoga Shastra. It is one of the most important yama. That means not to do himsa. So ahimsa is a great value because it makes me empathetic towards others. Ahimsa makes me understand the pain of others, which is nothing but the maturity of the mind. Then kshanti. Kshanti is nothing but titiksha. Okay, matra sparshastu kaunteya, we saw that in the second chapter. Kshanti means titiksha. That means in choiceless situations, I'm willing to accept whatever is without any resistance. Does it mean that I have to accept everything without trying to change it? No. We have the free will. Bhagwan has given us the free will to try to change whatever is not conducive us. But every time it is not possible for us to change the situation to my liking. In spite of all my effort, there can be situations which are choiceless and I cannot do anything about it. It is my pravala prarabdha because of which I have to go through certain very, very painful experiences. Then what do? Yes, I have tried myself to do whatever I can, but there is nothing I can do about it. I have to go through it. I have to tolerate it. And this acceptance of choiceless situations as a learning process, not with some kind of a resistance, not with some kind of a anger, hatred, no, but accepting it with maturity. Yes, I don't become bitter, not with bitterness, not with sorrow. Yes, this is there. What can I do about it? I have tried my best to change the situation. It is not possible. If it is not possible to change the situation, what can I do? I have to just pray and wait for the situation to take its own course. Therefore, accepting a choiceless situation without bitterness, without any kind of anger towards anything, that accepting it without any resistance. I don't say happily. It's not possible to happily accept a choiceless situation, but with a mature intellect, yes, this is what. I don't know why this has come. There is some reason for this. I deserve this situation. I don't know why it has come, but what can I do now? I'll keep trying to do whatever I can to the best of my ability. If it's not possible, I'll accept it the way it is. That is called as kshantihi. Next is arjavam. What is arjavam? There is an alignment between my thought, my words, and my actions. Such is a person who is together, a person who thinks, speaks, and acts in one line. That straightforwardness. This is what is called as arjavam, and it is absolutely necessary as a maturing value. Maturing value means the value which matures my mind, alignment of thought, word, and action, which is called as arjavam. Then acharyopasanam. Acharya upasanam. See, if I have manitvam and dambitvam, I'll never be able to even respect the acharya, because I think that I'm the best, I'm the most, the person to be respected. I don't care. But then we have to understand that this knowledge, kshetra kshetrajna knowledge, is the scriptural knowledge. It is the truth, but it is extremely difficult to understand because of its subtlety. And we need the medium of a guru or an acharya. Paramparataya, he or she has learned how to convey this difficult teaching of the Shastra. Therefore, I have to worship Acharya or the teacher as Ishvara, because Acharya is the very representative of the Vedas, a very representative of Ishvara. That's why we say Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara. At that moment, we have to take Acharya, because it is the words of the Acharya which are going to open the very, very lock of the scriptural words. If we try to simply read the scriptures and Upanishad, nothing we will understand, because the way it is expressed in the Upanishad is such that it needs an acharya or a person who has gone through this teaching and knows how to open up the words of the Shruti to my intellect. So, respect, worship of the acharya. Next, he talks about Shaucham. Shaucham means what? Antar Shaucham and outside Shaucham also. I have to see that, the surroundings are clean. Otherwise, my mind can never be in a situation where it can happily absorb this knowledge. And Antara Shaucham, that means what? To some extent, at least my mind should be free of this raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, mada, matsarya, which a karma yogi has attained to a great extent. By the time one comes to jnana yoga, by the time one comes to this stage, a karma yogi and upasaka have already cleared the malas in the mind sufficiently, shaucham. Then sthiryam. What is sthiryam? The resilience to keep up with this shastra. So now that we have seen this 13th chapter, the first few verses are too difficult. So next time maybe, it's so difficult, I can't understand. And many of may drop out. That doesn't matter. I'm not saying that one should or should not. That is our tendency normally. Whatever is difficult, our tendency is, drop it. I can't understand. No. When it comes to a jnana yogi, I'm learning something which I have never known before. Shruti is talking about Brahman or Atma or this Kshetrajna, which is never, an object of my perception. And through the Kshetra only, I have to reach the Kshetrajna. So what the, Shruti is talking, what, Upanishads are talking is not so easy to understand. But I cannot give up. If I'm a real Jignasu Bhakta, then I have the sthiryam, the resilience, and the strength of the mind to go on listening again and again and again to the Shastra through the Guru. Because Pauna Paunena Shravanam, without that it is not possible to understand. One listening or one reading is not going to take me anywhere. I have to spend years and years in Shravanam and Mananam. That resilience or sthiryam I should have. And lastly, in this 7th verse, Atma Vinigraha, that is, when I have this alignment of the thought, word, and action, my mind and my sense organs and my body also have to support each other in this knowledge. My body should support me in sitting, listening for 1 hour or 2 hours without taking a break. My mind should be capable of really focusing on this for a considerable period of time. Therefore, all my indriyas, the sthula shariram and the indriyas and the mind should be able to be together to understand and expose themselves to this knowledge, to understand this. Atma Vinigraha, the capacity to control, the capacity to be a master of the body mind sense complex, where for a sufficient time I can absolutely devote this whole Karya Karana Sanghata to the study of Shastra. And just 1 hour may not be enough. There are times when you have to spend hours together in a day, because how 1 hour goes you don't know. See how already it's 8 o'clock. I have hardly taken 3 verses today. I told you that the 13th chapter is something which I'll be probably taking for a much longer time, because every verse in the 13th chapter is a verse which requires a lot of contemplation upon. So here Atma Vinigraha means the one who is together, who has a balance of the Karya Karana Sanghata. So these are the first few values: amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, kshantihi, arjavam, acharyopasanam, shaucham, sthiryam, atmavinigraha. 9 values have been talked about in the 7th verse. We'll complete these values next time, and then we'll see how all of them are interconnected to each other. You cannot have only one value. And now, since it's already time, I was thinking of completing the values, but it requires so much more explanation. So you'll have to be a little patient with this chapter. Don't lose confidence, don't lose interest, because this is the beginning of the 3rd shatkam, and there is a drastic change in the teaching of Krishna. One needs to have a little bit of patience and understanding in understanding Lord Krishna. ॐ नन्दन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्था शाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुः सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।